Hey guys, it is day 196 and I am heading to track to do my week 10 long run. Today's run is slotted for 5 miles. Sorry guys, I know you guys are getting a perfect view of my steering wheel there, and the camera probably will be subsequently out of focus. There, I flip things around, maybe it'll be a little bit better. Final footage, I'm not sure. I face a little bit of a training dilemma, training choice. I don't know if there is a wrong answer, but I definitely am at a crossroads and I'm not really sure how I'm going to handle it yet. So here's the situation. My ultimate goal is to be able to run a marathon in Cincinnati for the Flying Pig, and I need to be able to run that distance under 16 minutes a mile. If I run it at that pace, then they it's not like they kick you off the track apparently, but there's not going to be any support. They just kind of leave you behind in a sense. So I don't really want to be slower than 16 minutes a mile. And that's all well and good. I've been striving for that mark and I've been meeting that mark. My first couple, like my half-mile long run and my mile long run, I was at around 12 minutes, 11 minutes, somewhere in that ballpark. And then consistently, as I added more mileage, of course, that mile time increased. However, over the last several long runs, my mileage time has decreased at a pretty comfortable around 13 minutes, something like that. And you could say on an average about 13 to 14 minutes per mile. Now I know that is slow, but you're talking about a guy who just started walking January 1st and was completely sedentary for decades. And then as of May 2nd of this year, I decided to start training. So only for a couple months. Now, in order for me to get those 13 and 14 minute times, I have to, I've essentially been running at around 145 beats per minute, and then I'd spike it up to about 155, and then I back off until it reached 145 again, and then I would run it, and I would just kind of rinse and repeat. It would be jog, walk, jog, walk. Now, that strategy was working well for me for about a month, and then the summer heat kind of just tanked, and it just came in hot and heavy, tons of humidity, and my VO2 max started plummeting. It's been on a downward ascent for at least a month, and it would just fall incrementally, and basically every cardiovascular score would go down, but then my running times would go up, and it was just kind of a weird situation. And I also noticed that I was having a very hard time keeping my heart rate down to 145. If I was jogging at all, it would start to spike up to 165, and then I would try to back off and it might rest to 155. But basically there was around at least a 10-15 beats per minute rise in my heart rate all throughout. Now, in my last 2 5K races, basically my very first 2 races in my life, I outpaced my normal long run pace, and of course, and it was like 12:05 per mile, and then my very last one was 12:15 per mile. And in order to do that, I knew that I was spiking my heart rate much higher than I traditionally would. But it mostly felt comfortable throughout the race, and I just used markers from within the races, just kind of dry. If I see other people running and I want to keep up with them kind of thing, and I ran faster in the events. But subsequently, my heart rate would rise much higher than I normally would throughout my long run training. Now, I have been looking into the purported benefits of Zone 2 racing, and I didn't even know what my Zone 2 was all throughout my entire level of training, and I still technically don't, because I don't know my true VO2 max. And all I could do is give like AI my highest recorded heart rate that was recorded through the Apple Watch, and during the races, the 5K races, my heart had reached 184. However, back in like 2022, my heart rate had spiked up to 210 at one one point, 205 and 200, and I have all of that recorded. And a few times, since then, it has spiked up into those 200 marks. So I don't know what my actual maximum is, but I gave it the information. Zone 2 defined in the way that it is, it means that I'm going to have to walk if I want to stay in zone 2. It's like a brisk power walk, and that's going to put my times really, really slow. So the choice I have today is, do I take these 5 miles in zone 2 completely and I just do the easy, long run, and it's not even a run, it'd be a long walk for 5 miles, or do I go ahead and try to keep that standard of time that I want to kind of meet, and that means I'm working in for zone 3 and zone 4, especially zone 4 probably. Now I came fully prepared today to be working within zone 4, because as I go stretch longer than an hour, I've got carb refuel and stuff like that ready to go, but it's still just a matter of, do I want to work within that zone or stay in this slower fat burning zone, a little bit more protective and all that. Additionally, I do have another 5K race coming up this Saturday, so that's another factor going into this. I don't exactly like the idea of doing just zone 2 for 5 miles, doing a brisk walk, but I might do that, so we'll see. Another factor at play here, just being totally transparent, I took some pre-workout stuff. It's like by 6 Star pre-workout explosion, all this stuff. I usually I've been using it for about a week and a half, but I've done like 1 scoop prior to a workout, and I wanted to kind of test to see how my body would react if I had 2 of those, and I don't think that was such a great idea. My head is a little swimmy. I probably shouldn't have done that. That's probably going to be the biggest factor on whether or not I walk this thing or run this thing. But at least I've learned, hey, my body isn't really going to handle all that right now. All right, guys, I'm going to get out there. It's already too hot. It's like 80 degrees, and it's going to be a high of 93 today. Not going to be fun at all. But I need to go ahead and start the distance. I will probably start out walking it, see how I'm feeling, and then at some point, if I need to, or if I feel like I can handle it, then I'll go ahead and start maybe transitioning into a higher zone. But we'll kind of see. But anyway, I will check back in with you guys after the walk or run or whatever it's going to be. Hey guys, I just got the 5 miles done. That was very, very brutal. AI told me not to do 2 scoops of that stuff because it would make my legs feel like mud at the end of the race or run, and it was so correct. This is the first time inside of a run that I felt like lactic acid build up within the legs, the thighs, the calves, everything. I decided to find an unhappy medium and let the heart rate kind of decide the pace, and I topped out at 155 and brought it back up at 145. In some earlier long runs, I would use that formula, but I would also go off of feel. So if I felt better, I would go ahead and spike it to 165 and beyond. But today, I just relied on the watch and just had it carry me through. Because of that, my times are slower, but they're like 14 to 15 a mile, somewhere in that ballpark. But it just felt so brutal. Now I'm in the New Balance Rebel V4s, and these things, I remember buying them brand new, and I remember putting them on my feet for the first time, and they felt so magical. It was great. And since that time, I've barely wore these things. They probably don't even have like 15 miles on them, but man, I could feel the EVA foam just kind of bottoming out about 2.5 miles in. I'm a big dude, so I put a lot more pressure on these shoes, and buddy, I could feel it, man. 2.5 miles in, and it was like I lost all the pop and cushion from these shoes. Now, I wore them during the last 5K, and they felt fine, but that was because I was on a horse track and pea gravel, and it was kind of a mushy texture. But here, I'm mostly on pavement, and buddy, I felt it. I honestly felt better in the Vapor Max 97s because that was at least a cushion of air. It felt like a gazelle, but in these things, I just felt like I was digging out of mud. And that's sad because it's such a lightweight shoe, and I love the design, and I love the way they felt right from the store. But man, out on this with my size, not a good match. I decided to go with that unhappy medium of 145 to 155 rather than staying in zone 2, because it's not just about cardio development that I need to get ready for inside of a marathon, but it's also tendon development and ligament development. And the only way to really do that is to kind of put it under a similar load, which I'm going to be running within incremental paces. So I really needed to try to strive below that 16 mark, and that's really the only way I know how to do it. It is brutal, but yeah, I had to go that route. I'll spend these next 2 days in zone 2 or below, and possibly just a no run day tomorrow at all, who knows, depending on how I feel, and be ready for that 5K race on Saturday, hopefully. All right, guys, that's going to do it for me. I'm done. You all take it easy. Later.